What's up, everybody? This is Ben with Orange Sky Apothecary, and I just wanted to make a video that kind of is a comprehensive guide of all the things that I've learned um, from my own experience with heavy metal detoxing. My own experience is mostly with mercury, which is probably the most dangerous heavy metal to be dealing with. Um, so I'm going to go over everything I've learned. I've kind of put everything into one place. Now, each one of the things that I talk about is probably could be expanded upon or expounded upon into other smaller videos, but I wanted to put everything into an over one place with everything that I learned. So here we go. This is my heavy metal detox guide, and I'm going to start out by emphasizing that when it comes to heavy metal detoxing, there is no such thing as a standardized protocol. It just does not exist. There is several internet personalities, you could say, that have their own protocols. Andy Cutler is one of them. He's wrote a book on heavy metal detox, and I wanted to go over what kind of some of these different protocols that people are using and why I think they're dangerous. And some of these things are extremely dangerous if you have some kind of sickness that you're dealing with, especially a mystery illness that's heavy metal related. Um, some of these some of these protocols can be extremely dangerous. So I wanted to go over that. So the purpose of this presentation is to promote a safe protocol that limits or eliminates detoxification reactions. Now, a detox reaction is what they call Herxheimer's. It's just from basically when you release too many toxins too quickly, and your body can't keep up with it. You get sick. So we need to have a protocol that eliminates that and eliminates redistribution of heavy metals into the soft tissues, organs, and the brain. Now, redistribution is the main component of heavy metal detox that's the most dangerous piece, and that's what you want to eliminate. So, um, a key component of this presentation is to bring awareness to potentially dangerous detox practices, protocols, and supplementation. And I'm actually going to go through a huge list of supplements and the ones that I think are helpful and the ones that I think that should be avoided. Certain practices and procedures like the Chelation challenge test or glutathione injections can lead to devastating health issues that could be life-threatening. It can take months or years to recover from mobilizing large amounts of heavy metals. So definitely you do not want to be redistributing heavy metals, especially into the brain. It can cause psychosis. You could be hospitalized. And really at the hospital, they're not going to be able to help you very much because they're not going to understand what's going on. Heavy metal detoxing isn't something that's on the radar in traditional medicine, and even in the natural health field, you're going to find you're going to have difficulty finding a practitioner that's very knowledgeable. So, common dangerous heavy metals are going to be lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, and thallium. These are you could add aluminum to that list as well. But let's just go over each one. Lead is found in contaminated water supply from lead pipes, batteries, paint, gasoline, and construction materials. Mercury is found in thermometers, light bulbs, batteries, seafood, amalgam dental fillings, and topical antiseptics. Um, Arsenic is found in topical creams, herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, paint, enamel, glass, contaminated water, and seafood. Cadmium is found in metal plating, batteries, and cigarette smoke. So that's a big one. If you're a smoker, you're going to be getting a lot of cadmium. And I go over some different ways that you can detox your lungs a little bit later on in this presentation. And then you have thallium, which is in pesticides, rodenticides, and fireworks. And also, I didn't have aluminum on that list, but obviously the sources of aluminum are pretty vast. You should definitely be eliminating aluminum cookware if possible. You shouldn't be drinking out of aluminum cans, especially if you're a large consumer of alcohol. You should avoid drinking alcohol from cans, definitely. So mercury, cadmium, lead, arsenic, and aluminum are commonly found in the environment, such as water, food, air, and soil. Their presence in the environment can be attributed to both natural geological processes and human activities such as industrial manufacturing, mining, and agricultural practices that utilize metal-based pesticides and fertilizers. So it's really a big, as there's been an increase in industrialization, the sources of heavy metals have been expanded. Now, a lot of these companies and corporations, um, what we need to be concerned with is how they're disposing of their waste, and some of them use it come in the form of burning it off and putting it into the air, and some people dump it into the ocean. So the ocean is really contaminated with large amounts of mercury nowadays, and you got to be careful with anything that comes from the sea, because a lot of the stuff that comes from the ocean is contaminated with heavy metals now. So removing the source, if possible, is a key component of successful heavy metal detoxification. But you actually need to be aware that removing amalgam fillings is the most dangerous piece of mercury detoxification, and really should be only done by a knowledgeable dentist. Good luck finding somebody that does this the right way. I went to somebody that I thought was going to be safe, and it ended up being very, very dangerous the way that they did it. So you need to really look long and hard, and you should only ever remove one at a time. And then you should only get them removed one at a time. And then if you have 4 or more of them, you need to wait several months in between getting each one removed. And you should also be doing the baths before and during and after you get your mercury fillings removed. Now I can make a whole nother video on mercury fillings, but I just wanted to go over all the general information and then make more specific videos. So the symptoms of heavy metal toxicity are anxiety, depression, confusion, numbness, nausea, fainting, abdominal pain, diarrhea, dehydration, tingling, chronic headaches, pain, nerve pain, muscle cramps, numbness, tingling or tremors, muscle tics and twitches, brain fog, memory loss, impaired language skills, confusion, headaches or migraines. That's a big one, especially with lead. Weakness, fatigue, joint pain, whole body aches, constipation, loss of coordination, abnormality of gait, night sweats, unexplained weight loss or gain, insomnia, low body temperature, infertility, and miscarriage. So, in the early stages, many people have no symptoms at all. It should also be noted that taking the bentonite clay bath is a solid preventative measure. So, even if you don't have any of these issues right now, down the road, it could save you from having a lot of health issues. So, illnesses related to heavy metal toxicity, you're going to be dealing with neurological disorders, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, mental health disorders. That would be mood and thought disorders primarily, like bipolar or schizophrenia. And then you also have links with autism spectrum disorders and heavy metals, especially mercury. So neurological diseases, you're going to be is Alzheimer's, heavy metals like lead, cadmium, and mercury. Arsenic can damage the nervous system and contribute to Alzheimer's. Multiple sclerosis, which has to do with scarring in the brain. That has to do with, in my opinion, that's a mercury issue. Metals like mercury, gold, nickel, and aluminum have been linked to multiple sclerosis. So MS is a very debilitating disease. And you can have, actually, when I was dealing with my mercury issue, I had a lot of the symptoms of MS. Parkinson's disease, metals like mercury, gold, nickel, and aluminum have all been linked to Parkinson's disease. Then you have ALS. They can cause damage to the nervous system and contribute to ALS. So, serious diseases neurologically that you want to avoid. And if you're dealing with them, the baths can definitely help you with that. So let's go over some cardiovascular disease and diabetes. So cardiovascular wise, we're dealing with heart attacks. Exposure to lead, cadmium, arsenic can increase the risk of heart attacks. Stroke. Again, these heavy metals increase the risk of stroke. Peripheral artery disease. Exposure to lead, cadmium, and arsenic can increase the risk of peripheral artery disease. Also, you can get diabetes. There are links with heavy metals and diabetes, because cadmium can lower the glucose transport and contribute to diabetes and diabetes-related hyperglycemia. Heavy metals can enter the body through the skin, inhalation, or ingestion of contaminated substances. Now, the biggest one that you want to be aware of, I mean, if you're dealing with something like mercury, yes, you can get it through your skin. If you have the fillings, what you need to be worried about is inhalation, because it's actually not just swallowing it. Swallowing the metals all day will coat your digestive tract with lots and lots of mercury and metals. but it's actually the gassing off from drinking things that are hot and breathing it in that causes a lot of the issues, and that actually accumulates in your kidneys. So um, they kind of hit you from all angles here with how we're getting the heavy metals in us. Now, also autism spectrum disorders. This is something that I have and I can relate to. I'm, high functioning autistic, but this is something that it took me 20 years of dealing with before I got properly diagnosed. Actually, longer than that. But it really wasn't something that I got diagnosed with correctly until later on in my life. And it's really something that we're just starting to understand a little bit better, but it's a complex neurodevelopmental disorder that can be caused by a variety of factors, including genetics, environmental factors, and exposure to heavy metals and toxins. One of the heavy metals that has been linked to autism is mercury. It is a highly toxic metal that can cause damage to the central nervous system, including the brain, when ingested or inhaled. Studies have shown that exposure to mercury during pregnancy or early childhood can increase the risk of developing autism. So I know that there's a lot of concerned parents out there that are trying to do things to help with the heavy metals in their kids. And actually, one of the best things that you can be doing is giving your autistic kids the clay bath. So here's a little bit of a link that I found that goes over some of the autistic stuff. And that's a whole nother topic that we can make more videos about in the future. But the mood and thought disorders, that's mainly bipolar, schizophrenia, those kind of things. Also something that I struggle with. I actually have schizoaffective, which is kind of a mood and a thought disorder combined. So I have the best of both worlds there that I'm dealing with when it comes to these mental health issues. And actually, when I was going through some peak toxicity with the mercury issue from the fillings, I ended up in the psych hospital and was dealing with some severe psychosis and actually had to get on medication to deal with the psychosis that I'm still on and actually helps me a lot. So if you're dealing with a mood or thought disorder, definitely I wouldn't discourage taking medication. But the clay baths are definitely going to help with your symptoms and they actually help stabilize my mood. And it deal especially with anxiety and things like that too. And doing a heavy metal detox is definitely going to improve your symptoms. So this just talks about how being exposed to heavy metals can contribute to the developmental of mental health issues. You can have cognitive impairments. Anxiety is a big one because they have neurotoxic effects. Key points about heavy metals and thought disorders. They can interfere with brain chemistry by disrupting neurotransmitters like dopamine, which is crucial for mood regulation and cognitive function. Lead is often cited as a major concern, linking prenatal lead exposure to increased risk of cognitive difficulties and behavioral problems. So, symptoms associated with heavy metal exposure that could be mistaken for thought disorders include difficulty concentrating, psychosis, mood swings, irritability, memory problems, paranoia, and social withdrawal. Now, also, this deals with ADD type stuff, and definitely you will have symptoms of ADD if you have a heavy metal issue. So, the biggest things that we're dealing with when we're talking about doing a heavy metal detox, and the number one danger is going to be redistribution. And that mainly redistribution occurs mostly in your gut when you push heavy metals through your liver and into your digestive tract. They get reabsorbed and put into the bloodstream where they get redistributed into your brain and soft tissues. So that's something that the main thing that you're going to be avoiding, and why people talk about how dangerous heavy metal detox is. That's what you're talking about, is redistribution. So you don't want to be just start taking a random bunch of supplements and says, oh, this is good for heavy metal detox, let me try this. Don't do that. Stick with taking the baths, and you're not going to have any redistribution. And then I talked a little bit about this Herxheimer reaction. It's related to releasing too many toxins at once. It's a detox reaction. It can make you feel sick. Exposure to mercury vapor is also the most dangerous piece, which I touched on a little bit. You can also injure your kidneys from taking chemical chelation agents. Also, when you're taking the chelation drugs, you can be stripping out large amounts of essential minerals and nutrients, and actually that has resulted in death. So really, you got to be very careful when you're talking about a heavy metal detox and know what you're doing. Um, So here I talk a little bit about chelation therapy. Now this is a little bit more technical stuff, but it's important stuff to talk about because this is one of the main ways that if you go to see a doctor, what they'll recommend to you is sometimes they will recommend chelation therapy. So what it is that it involves the administration of chelating agents to remove heavy metals from the body. Now, there's also different kinds of supplements that they use that form different chelates, but we're talking about chemical chelation here. So it must be administered with care as it has a number of possible side effects, including death. Um, so really, this most of chelation therapy has to be done under a medical doctor, and if it is done, it's usually in response to acute poisoning, not for something that's a chronic issue. Chronic exposure is often overlooked, and when they do like a blood test or something, that's not necessarily anything that's going to show up there. So, chelation therapy is um, probably the thing that I would recommend the least. Now, after you get your fillings removed, doing chelation with something like DMPS, that can be very valuable. That's something that I did after I got my fillings removed. So I came home, I had some DMPS that I had gotten from China, and I took some DMPS after I got my fillings removed, and it actually resolved a lot of my symptoms. So taking something like DMPS after you get your fillings removed under the care of a doctor can be a great idea. So these are the different chelation drugs. You have calcium EDTA. This one's probably going to be used the most by alternative practitioners. Now you have to make sure that you're taking the calcium EDTA and not just the regular disodium EDTA, because it can actually strip out too much calcium from your blood and give you like a heart attack or something. It strips out too many minerals. So you have to be really careful with this EDTA. There's also DMPS, DMSA, and BAL. The DMPS is mostly used for mercury, and DMSA is actually used a lot for lead. You can't really even get DMPS in the States very often. It would have to be done by a compounding pharmacy. So now these drugs are just, one piece of the puzzle. Really, all you need to know about them is I don't really recommend taking any of these unless you're dealing with like an acute poisoning situation, because we have the baths. Because we have the baths, you don't need to do anything. Using any of these supplements or these drugs, they can be very hard on your kidneys. Now you're pushing all these heavy metals out through your kidneys and out through your urine, when really your kidneys are probably the most sensitive organ that you're dealing with when you have a mercury issue. Is everything is stored in your kidneys, and then you're even pushing more metals through your kidneys, and then you can actually have permanent kidney issues because you're pushing so many metals out through them. So this is very dangerous stuff. I really wouldn't recommend messing with any of this stuff unless you're dealing with an acute poisoning situation or right after you have your fillings removed. Now, some of these, let's see. Now, I went over a little bit of this stuff, but the chelating agents are fairly rapidly excreted over a few hours or days. In contrast, toxic elements may have been accumulated over long periods of time and partitioned into various bodily compartments, not all being equally accessible to chelating agents. Commonly, a chelating agent will mobilize the most readily available metals first, typically in the plasma, kidney, or liver, and then to a lesser extent, the bone and central nervous system. So this talks about how you need to address these conservatively with repeated modest treatments and the use of multiple agents. Now, really, this is like technical stuff that it's valuable information, but it's unnecessary when you're talking about detoxing with a clay bath. But one thing that I really think that is important to highlight is this chelation challenge test that they do. Now that's where they give you a urine mobilization test, and then they inject you with a chelating agent, and then they collect a urine sample after they inject you with the chelation agent to measure the amount of metals that are excreted. Now, this test, if you are a sick person, this test can make you very sick. Especially if they give you a high dose of like uh, 200 or 300 milligrams of DMPS or DMSA, that could be for somebody like me, when I was going through a severe, detox from Mercury, if they would given me that high of amount IV, that would have possibly killed me. It would have made me much, much sicker. It would have taken me a long time to recover. You want to avoid doing this chelation challenge test. The dose is extremely high for a sick person, and it can redistribute large amounts of metals into the soft tissues and organs, brain, etc. It can also damage the kidneys. Um, Somebody with a heavy metal related illness can have impaired kidney function to begin with, and really the kidney should be the last detoxification pathway used. So you can also strip out lots and lots of zinc, magnesium, and calcium. So really, this can't be emphasized enough that you need to avoid this test, especially if you're a sick person. So if you want to find a safe test, you should use this doctor's data test. They do hair, urine, stool, and blood testing. I think the hair test is probably the most commonly used one. But if you're having mercury issues, you're having the symptoms with mercury poisoning, and you have more metal fillings, you're over the age of 35, having health issues, it's safe to assume that you have a mercury issue. You don't really need to take the test. You can if you want to, but somebody that has 5 fillings in and having health issues, it's kind of a no-brainer that that's what's causing their health issues is the mercury. So it's definitely safe to be taking bentonite clay baths if you do have the amalgam fillings in. So a lot of stuff on the internet about, oh, you can't detox if you have the heavy metal or if you have the metal fillings in, you can take the baths. And a lot of that stuff, I don't know where it's coming from about not detoxing with the amalgams in, because you need to do some kind of detox before you get them taken out, especially if you're already dealing with a sickness. So I went over a little bit about this redistribution stuff, but it's when you mobilize too many metals faster than your body can get rid of them. The early stages of detox should focus on removing metals from the GI tract and pulling metals out of the pores with the clay bath. So it's safe to be taking charcoal, it's safe to be taking clay, and if you want to just do something basic, you want to be taking the baths and taking activated charcoal and bentonite clay orally. You should be also taking vitamin C. So if you want to just do a basic detox, you want to just be taking the baths, taking activated charcoal, eating bentonite clay, and taking vitamin C. And that's really all that you need to do. That's a basic detox. And then you want to replace some of your minerals like zinc and selenium. Um, but all of that stuff is safe, and you can do that at home. You're not going to worry about redistribution. So if you're dealing with a chronic mystery illness, chronic fatigue, you're dealing with chemical sensitivity, you should avoid chelation agents and supplements that mobilize large amounts of heavy metals. So you want to avoid glutathione. This glutathione injections are becoming increasingly popular. Um, but if you have a mercury issue, it's going to mobilize too many metals and it can make you sick. I've read of people who got a glutathione injection, danced all night, felt great for a couple of days, and then it took them a year to recover after the injection. So you want to avoid glutathione injections. You want to avoid chemical chelation agencies. You want to avoid N-acetylcysteine, which is converts into glutathione in your liver. This can cause redistribution. Cilantro. I actually got really sick from taking too much cilantro one day. I made a kind of a detox drink with cilantro and like a bunch of garlic. And I got really sick after I took it because I used a different kind of cilantro than I had been using before. You don't know how much you're taking. You don't know how strong it is. You really want to avoid cilantro. It can mobilize too many metals at once. You also have to be careful with taking large doses of iodine. Now, iodine is something I recommend taking. It's a necessary nutrient and everybody needs it, and you're not getting it from salt like people think, because it's all depleted by the time you get it on your food. But you got to be careful of taking large doses of iodine. Also, large doses of garlic. That you could also have sensitivity to sulfur, which would be garlic and onions. So you want to avoid taking large doses of garlic. It will make you feel good, but it can cause redistribution. Alpha lipoic acid, that's another one. This is very powerful stuff. It can actually, it's actually water soluble and fat soluble and strong enough to actually detox the brain. But this is something that you want to avoid. If you do take something like this, you really need to start with a very low dose. And the doses that they give are really much higher. So I would really avoid this ALA. MSM, it's a nutritional sulfur, and it can also lead to redistribution. Now, these are all things that can be good stuff, but if you're dealing with a mercury issue, these are all supplements that can cause redistribution. So these are things that you need to be using under the care of a doctor who really understands heavy metal detox. Now, safe detoxification would be bentonite clay baths, vitamin C, edible bentonite clay, activated charcoal, zinc, selenium, and magnesium, mineral supplementation, and then vitamin E, and then you can also take some B vitamins. That's safe detox. That's what you want to be doing because you're not risking any kind of redistribution. Now you're going to be dealing when you're talking about redistribution. Okay, so I took some of the stuff. What does that feel like? It can be fatigue, headaches, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, chills or low body temperature, dehydration, weakness, and then you also get a numb or prickly sensation in your hands and feet, and also you can be dealing with psychosis. So that's not any of these symptoms are unpleasant, and these can last for a long time. It can take several days before redistribution really sets in, and it can take months or longer to recover from. Now, if you're dealing with redistribution or you took something that you shouldn't have, take the clay baths, take the activated charcoal and the bentonite clay internally. Those are safe to take when you're dealing with redistribution and should help. But the rule is if you're dealing with redistribution, stop taking everything. Besides the clay baths and besides taking bentonite clay or activated charcoal, I would stop everything because you want to stop it in its tracks if possible. And the baths will definitely help if you're dealing with redistribution. So protocols to avoid: the Andy Cutler protocol, that's where he recommends mostly DMSA, but you take low doses of chelation agents, like 4 days on, 3 days off. Really all this is going to be doing is kind of slowly poisoning you all the time. None of these drugs are really that great that he recommends, the DMPS, the DMSA. So really you want to avoid doing anything with chemical chelation agents altogether because we have the clay baths. You don't need to be worried about slowly poisoning yourself. That's what you're going to be doing with the Cutler protocol. Christopher Shade protocol, this guy really understands heavy metal detox from a textbook point of view, and he was really knowledgeable. But everything that he recommends and everything on his website is really powerful and will mobilize huge amounts of metals. And you really don't want to be taking pretty much anything. He does have a product called the IMD Metal Detox. It's actually functionalized silica that helps remove mercury from the gut. That's a good product. A little bit overpriced for what it is because you can really do the same thing with charcoal and clay for pennies. So I would really recommend against the Christopher Shade protocol, especially for mercury. Now you have this Dr. Gordon guy who does the calcium EDTA. He recommends taking large amounts orally. Again, this is unnecessary. And really, if you're taking tablespoons of EDTA orally, you're going to be also, I would think that it would chelate a lot of essential minerals, and just like your gut is going to be coated in this stuff all the time if you're taking it every day, tablespoons a day, and you're going to be getting rid of a lot of necessary nutrients. And again, it's unnecessary because we have the baths. So the chemical chelation, I've talked a lot about that, and the challenge test. These are all things that you should avoid, and really these are what exists on the internet as far as doing a heavy metal detox. These are the people that you're going to come across. These are the kind of protocols that you're going to be dealing with. And the biggest thing with the bath is you just need to have enough clay to be taking them regularly, which is why I recommend buying 50-pound bags, keep it in your bathroom, and taking the bath 3 to 5 times a week. So, dangerous supplements.